Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on product innovation for small business. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'm going to be your host today, and our presenter is Paul Block. More on Paul in just a minute, but first, some brief information on SCORE. Paul, if I could just ask you to advance the slide, please. So, SCORE is a nonprofit national partner of the SBA with over 10,000 volunteers nationally. And locally here in SCORE Fairfield County, we have about 100 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. And we offer three primary value-added services to small business owners that you see on the screen there. First of all, we offer free one-on-one counseling, and you can access that in person, by video, telephone, email, whatever works best for you. You can just click on the request a mentor link there that you see on the screen, or you can go to our website and click on the link there. Secondly, we offer business education programs like the one today, and we offer many of those in person and also online, and you can access the online ones either in person like today or on demand. Lastly, we offer extensive resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts and various tools and information. Our next live webinar will be in 2 weeks on Tuesday, May 20th at noon, when Sheila O'Donnell will be presenting how to avoid costly mistakes with Medicare. And again, you can find more specifics on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. And if you're on our website, you'll also find that we have a large number of recorded webinars there that cover a wide range of business topics, and you can view those at any time just by clicking on demand webinars. Just some logistics about today's event. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. And if you have a question, please use the Q&A button at any time during the presentation. It's usually located in the lower part of your screen. And Paul will take as many as we can up until the top of the hour. Our webinar will end at 1 o'clock to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org, within the next day or two. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Paul Block. Paul is a seasoned consumer packaged goods executive and board director with over 4 decades of experience revitalizing underperforming businesses, driving profitable growth, and building world-class brands. Known for delivering extraordinary results, Paul has held executive roles including Vice President of Marketing, Chief Marketing Officer, General Manager, Chief Restructuring Officer, and Chief Executive Officer across corporate divisions, private enterprises, and public corporations. He has held these executive roles at a variety of companies that include Miller Brewing Company, Sara Lee Corporation, Groupe Danone, and Marathon Worldwide. Paul, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Bob, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. So the first thought here is the theme of new product development. You don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. So that's going to be our thought for today. Why should we follow consumer packaged goods best practice? Well, first of all, the average failure rate in new product development is 80%. And that is based on practicing some kind of disciplined process. If we consistently follow some of these best practices in NPD, we see the framework or the success rate increase to 50%. So that's over 250% increase. Now you may be saying, well, wait a minute, Paul, I'm not a big company or big corporation. I'm just one person or a small entrepreneur. And that's exactly right. You don't have to be small to think big. And the other thing is, if you are small and you're thinking big, you're probably already ahead of the pack in terms of the other competitors that are up against you. And when you do think about startups, the number one reason startups fail is because they build something that doesn't matter. So what we want to focus on today is building something that really matters and resonates. But before we get to that, let's look at the 5 steps of startup to scale up. Now we're going to focus on the blue circle, new product development. We're going to talk about create, define, and validate a proposition that really resonates. The second step is building a business case. Third step, business plan. Fourth would be testing, and fifth, would be growth, scale, and scope. Now, a lot of times I see a lot of folks try and combine all together, but really best practice is staying focused on one step at a time so you really know where you're succeeding and how you're succeeding. So these are going to be the 8 steps that we're going to focus on today. Within the 50 minutes we have allotted, this is going to be a lot to talk about. So move fairly briskly. Always available, and this presentation will be available for follow-up. So if you want to dig in further or you want to know more about a specific area, don't hesitate to reach out. So first is the idea. Second's the concept. Number 3, market analysis. 4, segmentation. 5, positioning. 6, prototyping. 7, feasibility. And 8, viability. So let's move on to number 2. Oops, sorry. So as we look at the process, it's not just an outline. It really is, the way you should think about this is a sequential flow of go, no go. Because you don't want to build an idea that you think is great and isn't really going to resonate in the marketplace. So you want to move along the continuum, and at certain places in the continuum, you may want to say, you know what, this isn't going to work. So you come up with an idea, you build the concept. Well, you present the concept to the consumer, and they may not really like what you have, or they may not really want what you have, or it may not compel them. So you may need to go back a step or find a different path. You may go into the market and find there's no real opening or opportunity, or the competition is just too strong in the area that you want to go. When you get into segmentation and positioning, you may find that just where you want to go and what you want to say and how consumers receive it's not strong enough. And when you build a prototype, maybe you can't really scale it, or maybe the financial matrix are just not in place. So think about this in terms of go, no go. And all along the process, you always want to think about consumer first, building the strongest proposition, and testing rigorously along the way. All right, so let's start out. Now, many times you'll hear people say, identify a problem, come up with a solution. I'm really not going to focus on that because I don't believe that's the best path for breakthrough innovation. The best path is an observation, to start with something you notice, an insight about how people feel, think, or act. So it's not what people are going to say, it's what they do. So you want to observe a behavior. When you look at the idea, that's going to be a creative lead. That's going to be something that sparks a product idea. And this is what people say, oh, wow, this is what really makes sense to me. This is something I want. So let me give you an example. New categories often come from noticing a shift of behavior, not from asking what's broken. This is a little different than the problem solution method. Here's an example. Many of us know about liquid death, the water that went into cans. They didn't fix a problem. They didn't fix hydration. What they did was they noticed a behavior. They noticed people hiding water in beer cans at concerts. Next thing they do, they put water in a can. Now it's $1 billion business. So this is really something I think that you can do from the first step, is make an observation and then come up with the idea. So let's use a real life example. All right. When I was at Miller Brewing Company, we had an observation. And the observation was non-alcoholic beers do not taste like real beer with alcohol. All right. That was just a behavior. That was something we saw consumers tasting it. They really didn't like it. They weren't enjoying it. We wanted to create an innovation in process and in taste. And we came up with this idea that really pushed the envelope. It was a leap, but it was an idea. We said, what if we created a malt beverage that tastes like a soft drink? And the master brewers went, wait, what? We could do that? We said, sure. They came up with an innovation in brewing because we kind of gave them the space to create. And this innovation was called cold fermentation, and it's now called Evercool. And what they did was they created a beer that tasted so much better than every other beer, and it had a reason for believing, which was cold fermentation. And then on the back of Miller Sharps, they then created this Miller Genuine Draft, which built on cold fermentation to a cold filter draft. So when you think of starting to build your idea, think of an insight in the market. What's your insight? What's your idea? And that idea may evolve and may develop over time. So let's move on from that. Let's take a real life example, okay? And when I say real life, it's just something I made up, but we're going to work it through. All right. So I had an observation that energy drinks feel synthetic, overstimulating, and nutritionally empty. And the idea was to create a plant-based energy drink, okay, that could be clean, balanced, bring clarity, not chaos. So it went from an observation to an idea. This is just an example, but an example that I want to follow through the process of new product development. So again, you don't need a big advertising agency. You don't need a lot of money. What you do need is your own ingenuity, your own insight, your own idea, and following the discipline. Okay, so let's say we go from observation to insight. We come up now with this idea, a plant-based energy drink that delivers clean, balanced energy with clarity, not chaos. Well, now we've got to turn that into something that consumers really want. And in general, I can tell you that consumers are indifferent. They're not looking for every day, they don't wake up and think, I need a new energy drink. So they're generally indifferent. We have to turn our idea into a concept where they really prefer it, where they love it, where it compels them to take money out of their pocket and buy it, and not only buy what you have to offer in terms of your product or service, but it has to supersede all the other competitors in the market. So we have some work to do, all right? So let's look at where do we go from our idea? Well, the first step is concept development, building the concept elements. This is the proposition. You ask yourself several questions. Can I really generate, refine, and shape my idea into a clear value proposition? Is it different? Does it really solve a need or a desire? And what is the reason that the consumer is going to believe it? Then once I do all that, I want to put it on a board. That's my pitch. I want to take that to the consumer and I want to test it. Do they want it enough to choose it and to take action and pay money, and why? So that's the concept development step. The next step is to convert it into features, advantages, and benefits. This is now going to build the structure for your concept. All right. So let me go on to the next slide, because that's really going to show you how we can build it with this idea of a plant-based energy drink. So my features are the facts about my product, or it could be facts about your service. What is it or what it is? So my plant-based energy drink is going to be ancient tea extract, ginkgo biloba, stevia, and no synthetics. And it's going to create an advantage. It's going to be natural, steady caffeine, boost blood flow, 0 calories, sweetness, and it's going to create benefits. Clean, crash-free, It's going to focus on a clarity and alertness. It's going to taste great, no sugar spike. So I built all these things now into specific buckets of features, advantages, and benefits. All right. So you've taken your idea. Now you're starting to turn your idea into a concept, but you're doing it in a way that is disciplined, process oriented, and it's going to be consumer focused. This is what's going to give you a great advantage. It's going to create a better chance for you to succeed, and it's going to create a more likelihood of you coming up with a winner. So now I want to summarize the value proposition. I want to put it into a concept statement. I want to think about, who am I going to target? Maybe come up with a working name. What problem does it solve? I have an insight. What are the features, advantages, and benefits? That's why we built those. That's why we turned our idea into features, advantages, and benefits, because that is going to be the foundation of our concept. Then we may want to think about a collage, the tone and manner, the specific target, the usage occasion, and bingo. Now I've come up with a concept board. I've come up with a working name. I'm going to call my energy drink Energetic. It's going to be an all-natural energy drink. And who's it going to target? Well, it's going to target mindful achievers who value clean living, right? The insight and the problem kind of that I came up with is, well, traditional energy drinks feel synthetic, nutritionally empty. And that's why we've created Energetic, a plant-based energy drink diffused with ancient tea extract, bilboa, and naturally sweet stevia. And then I'm going to give the reason why, because it's crafted to deliver, clean energy, sustained energy, and heightened mental clarity. This now becomes a board and a statement that I can then put in front of consumers. I can test my concept. Now, you may think it's great, but you can't buy enough product, or you can't market enough service to make your business really productive. So you have to make sure consumers are interested. Now, I don't only have to focus on this one concept. I could try another one. Now I could shift it up to athletic performance, and for performance-driven individuals. So I can now look at maybe the idea of no crash, no compromise, just clean power. I could take that same concept and now put it into a third type of concept board: natural lift for movers and makers. Clean energy, great taste, no sugar, no kidding. So you can see I've taken my features, advantages, and benefits. I've created now some visuals. I put it together with a concept. And now I could take these three boards. I could take a fourth board. And now I can go out and I can test it against consumers. So now, again, you don't need a lot of money. You can go to Starbucks. You can maybe buy someone a cup of coffee, show them these different concept boards, and ask them the questions that I have here. And probably the most, I'd say, effective method is just a one-on-one. You don't need a whole group. You could just sit down with one individual, talk to them for an hour, and then maybe meet with another individual. There's absolutely no cost involved. It's just going to take some fortitude and some diligence and some work. Now, the three most important questions that you need to ask when you're showing these concept boards, I have a list of these questions, but the three most important are: is it interesting? Is it relevant? And is it credible? Now let's think about that. Because if it's not interesting, it's not going to stand out, right? It's just going to be vanilla. It's going to be like everyone else. If it's not relevant, which means for me, then it's not going to be applicable. So somebody could say, wow, that is the wildest idea. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen, but I'd never use it. Okay. So then it doesn't have relevance. Now, if you get through interest and relevance, hey, I love it. This is really cool. It's really out there. I haven't seen anything like it. It's for me. Now, is it credible? Is it authentic? Do I really believe it? Because if I don't, I'm not going to buy it. You could also ask them about purchase intent. How likely are you to buy it on a scale of 1 to 10? You could write down their scores, and you could ask them which of the different boards they think are most compelling. So now you've tested it. Now I'm going to give you one more idea. It's a little more advanced, but if you use it, it can really separate your concept, and it can really give you confidence that you have a winner. And this is called attributes. So now I can take my energy drink and I can list all the attributes. These are characteristics of the product or the packaging. So what would be an attribute of my energy drink? Well, one attribute could be 120 milligrams of caffeine. Another attribute could be all natural. Another, zero sugar. These are attributes, lightly carbonated. I could go on SurveyMonkey and do a quantitative attribute ranking. I could ask consumers on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 means not at all and 10 means I love it, to rank these. And really, I don't even think, I haven't been on SurveyMonkey recently, but sometimes you can do it for no cost or a minimal cost. Then the real power comes in derived attributes. This is the secret. This is the power tool. What happens then is you take all your attribute rankings and you don't just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What derived attributes do is optimally bundle attributes that deliver the highest purchase intent. How cool is that? Now, it's not going to be the top 3. It could be attribute 1 bundled with attribute 4 and attribute 6. Create the greatest purchase intent. That is really good stuff that you have to go out into the market. All right. So you've got your idea, you've built your concept, you've done your features, advantages, and benefits. You've put that into concept boards, you've tested them. You may even have done your quantitative attribute ranking. Now you're ready to go to the market analysis. And I'm moving along quickly, but I'm sure you're taking the point along the way. And there's always opportunity for a deeper dive into each of these. So now that consumers love it, the important question is, what's going on in the marketplace? What's going on in the energy drink category? What's the size? What's the growth? Who are the key players? What are they doing? And most importantly, where are they going? And where can I go? So the market analysis isn't just about, oh, I need to know the size, I need to know the growth, I need to know the attributes. The market analysis is really about, where can you go? Where can you identify space? Where can you identify opportunity for energetic, for your energy drink, given all the work you've done? You may want to graph it out like I did here. You may want to look at it on, natural versus synthetic, wellness versus performance, and start to look where the different drinks fall and where you can identify your space. Because even if you have a great space, and even if consumers love it, they have to love it more than the competition. And we're going to talk about that specifically. So make sure you do your market analysis as a next step. This could be a go, no go. If you can't find a space, it's a no go. If You can find the space, it may be a go. So now that let's say we found the space, well, now you can start to segment consumers. And again, I'm giving you the best of the best. You don't have to do this, but if you do it, you've got a better chance of winning. Why? Because the more you define your consumer segment and the more you can define and differentiate your proposition, the more you insulate yourself from competition and the more your concept and value proposition is more compelling. So let's say we look at energy drinks. Well, we could start to break it out into urban trendsetters, young partygoers, blue collar workers, movers and makers. Why is this important? Because the message is going to be so different. For urban trendsetters, well, you could say to them, hey, dude, fuel your hustle with clean energy, plant-based power that fits your vibe. Well, that's going to be different than a young partygoer, where you might say to them, go all night, recover like a pro, plant-powered energy without the crash. Or may even go to blue collars, built to work as hard as you do. Natural energy lasts all day. So anyway, you get the idea. Same fundamental features, advantages, and benefits, but now we're looking at different lifestyles, different psychographics, different segments. And you could look at this differently. You could even go a step further and really break it out. And break it out in terms of mindset, message focus, the tone. So if we just look at the first two, the urban trendsetters may be health conscious, image aware, early adopters. Well, the party goers are social, thrill seeking, looking for energy. So the tone for the urban trendsetter, stylish, modern. The tone for the urban adult party goer, bold, edgy, playful. So again, this is really now just narrowing down who you are, what you are, and how you appear to your consumer. So now you're really trying to define the segments. So what is the next step? We've defined the segments. What do we do next? Now we frame the offering. So you now look at your target audience, this segment, define it. Now you say, okay, to that very specific segmentation, that target audience, what's the frame of reference? Who am I competing with? How am I going to frame this? When do you use it? So for the party goer, well, you're going to use it at night when you really want to rev up. You're going to mix it with your vodka and you're going to go out and party. So that's the usage. That's the frame. Why are we better? Because this isn't going to be a up and down, man. This is sustained energy all night. And then you want to define your point of difference. This is unique value or benefit. Well, what is our benefit? Well, we defined it in our features, advantages, and benefits. What are those benefits that really sets me apart from my competitors in that frame of reference? So you may have an offering that's unique. You may have an offering that's unique to your consumer, right? As number two. But if your offering isn't unique to your consumer and different and more compelling than your competitors, you don't have a sale. And what you want is a sale. You want to move your product. So you have to make sure you're positioning it. And this is what strategic positioning is. If you look to the right, it's the heart of your offering, the customer need, and the competitive offering. If you really can be right in that center, have the best offering, meet the customer need, supersede your competition, wow, you are going to win. This is a go. So positioning is very important, framing the offer. Of course, we could do probably an hour on each one of these slides, but we're really going to try and keep it, top line for now. All right, so we've done all that. Now we can get into prototyping. Now we can say, all right, boy, we've really moved through it. We've really slayed the dragon here. We've gone from an idea to a concept. We've built the concept into a concept board. We've tested the concept, and the consumers love it, okay, for all the right reasons. It's interesting, it's relevant, it's credible. They're going to buy it. We've looked in the market. There's space. We've then looked deeper into the market, and we've segmented the consumers that may be interested in my energy drink by lifestyle, by psychographic. And then we really know how to speak to them. So this informs us now on our product and our name and our logo and our packaging and how we develop that product, what the name, what the logo, what the packaging is going to be. So we use the working name energetic. Okay, well, let's look at it in terms of what kind of product we want. Well, I think because this is natural, we're going to make the product clear. Oh, let's give it a try. We've got to test that, right? Because we just don't want to launch it. Is a clear product really going to resonate? Well, I'm going to have to use certain kind of flavoring to make it believable. Or if I use lemon, maybe it's just got a light lemon tint. Or if I use lime. So these are things I can test in terms of my color, in terms of the taste. I know what my product is going to be because I've defined it. Now, I want to look at the packaging, the logo. Is it really speaking to who I want to be? So that's really the important part of prototyping. And also, there's just going to be the challenge of, can I even make it? Can I get my product to be the concept that I said it would be? So let's say we've done all of that. We've now got our product, got our logo, got our packaging. Now what can we do? We can now do what's called a concept product fit. We could go back to our concept board. We can put our product in there and we can see if it fits. Because maybe the concept was killer, but now that I show them the packaging and I let them taste the product, well, maybe it doesn't quite fit. Or maybe it's like, wow, this is unbelievable. This makes so much sense. This is clean energy, a killer taste, no sugar, no kidding. The packaging speaks to this movers, makers, this clean kind of fashionability and elegance. I have a winner. This is a go. So you might want to think about the concept product fit. And this isn't static, it's dynamic. I could go back to Starbucks. I could grab a few customers, sit down with them. I've got my boards. I buy them a coffee. I say, hey, or maybe not buy them a coffee, may say, before I buy your coffee, I'd like you to taste this energy drink. Do you mind? Crack it open, they taste it. Let me show you this concept board. What do you think? What do you think about the packaging? What do you think about the taste? What do you think about the concept? Does it all really work together? Now you're getting real-time feedback from the consumers. And this is a consumer-centric, process-driven technique that we're using. Now, I think this isn't even going to put you in the 50% probability because now you're using a disciplined process against other entrepreneurs. They probably don't have this. They're not using it. They don't know it. I bet this takes you up to a 60 or 70% probability of competing against others. All right, so we've got the concept product fit. Now what? Oh boy. Now, can I really make it? Can I really make it? Let's say I want to do uh, that plastic bottle, or I want to do a 16-ounce can. Well, okay, that sounds fairly doable. But I have to tell you, a lot of the people we work with, especially in food, they're making it in their kitchen, right? And they make 3 different items, maybe 10. But now they have to make 1,000 and they have to go into a commercial kitchen. It's not so easy. Or you have to make your widget, or you have to replicate your service 10 or 20 or 100 times over. It becomes more difficult. So the next step isn't to solve all the problems. Again, this is in the context of go, no go. I just want to get to where I know I've got a solid new product development concept, and I now can go to my concept, or I'm sorry, my business justification, my business case. So think of it in the context of go, no go. I'm going to get to my business case. Really, now all I want to understand is, do I have, or can I build, or can I outsource the capabilities, resources, and operational run rate to deliver the product with quality, consistency, and speed? You don't have to now define all of the quality control and a quality assurance, but you need to start thinking about it. And the other thing you need to start thinking about is the cost of goods. What is it going to cost me to make this at scale? You don't need to do anything else other than to start listing all these things. All right. So again, this could be a 1-hour discussion, but for the sake of the NPD process, don't skip over feasibility. Can I make it? And can I make it at scale? And can I duplicate it? So let's say now we've answered that question. Yes, I can. Next question. All right. I don't want you to look at all the numbers. What I really want you to think about now is in terms of viability. Can I model it and can I make money? And so I think you've now said, yeah, I can make it. So the 3 things I would suggest you focus on: don't jump to a big profit and loss statement. Don't start using pro forma volume. That comes in your business case, where you look at your number of outlets, number of units sold per outlet. Okay, we can look at some of that, but just only to understand your gross margin. So number 1, COGS modeling. What are my cost of goods? Now, you've looked at the feasibility, you looked at the scale. A lot of times, a outsourced co-packer will say, I can do 1,000 for X cost. Great. You can then get a unit cost. Maybe the co-packer will include all of the costs. So you only have to come up with 1 COGS total, $1.50. Sometimes you'll give them the ingredients. Maybe you'll give them the packaging, maybe the inbound freight, maybe there's a cost for quality control. But these are the things you should think about. If they're all included, that's fine. If you're not going to include them all, those would things you should think about. But under financial viability, just start with, what are my costs to make it? That's called COGS. Then the second thing, and again, a little more detail, but if you do this, you'll be way ahead of your competition. You can't just think about what your price is going to be, because there's other factors. You have to think about, what is my margin going to be? What am I going to charge the retailer? And oh, by the way, what is my retailer going to mark it up? And what is the margin they want? Because that's really going to be your price to the consumer. So you want to do some unit price modeling. You want to do it from now you know your cost of goods. We already did that. And you can mark it up and get the margin you need. Because I can tell you, if you can't mark it up and get over a 30% margin, you're a no-go. All right. Well, in this case, we took our $1.50 cost of goods. We marked it up $1.25, right? Or I'm sorry. Yeah, the unit markup was $1.25. We gave some discounts and promotions. We have a net unit markup. We've got our price to retailer. Our margin's 44%. Awesome. Now we charge the retailer that price. Well, they're going to mark it up. And so now we know what the ultimate price is to our consumer. And then we could work it back if we don't get the right price. All right. Now, very quickly, I know we're going to move on to the next thought, which is profit modeling. So we know what my cost of goods are. We know what our margin is. Now we just need to know how many outlets will we be in? What's the velocity per outlet? And what is going to be the unit price that I charge, which is my cost. And then I can get a total revenue. And then I can look just generally at my gross margin. I can look at it on a unit basis and I can look at it on a total gross profit basis. So if my gross profit is $4,000 a month and my net gross margin comes out to 39% after I do all this, is that enough really for me to do my marketing, for me to have a rent a space? You start to get an idea if this is no go. I don't need to do all that right now. I just need to understand it. So I know I've thrown a lot at you right now, but when you get to financial viability, think of your cost of goods, model out your price, and then do some gross profit and gross margin modeling. No more. That's going to get you to where you think this is a go or no go. So then, after we've done all that, we're going to go back and look, did we get everything we wanted? Did we, convert our idea into the right concept? Did we concept test the best way we could? Do we feel really confident? Do we feel like we have the space in the market? Okay. Did we segment correctly? Did we really choose and narrow down to the best, target audience? Did we position correctly? Prototype? Can we make it? Can we make money at it? And the only thing I'll say here is two thoughts here, maybe three. One is this is all about go, no go, and no go, or modification, right? So this isn't just about just do it. This is about I may not do it because it's not making sense, or I may have to modify it and go back a step to have it make sense. Because when I do go and when I really start to get into my business case, I want to make sure I've got a great process. Secondly, this isn't about money. This isn't about agencies. This isn't about consultants. This is about your brain power, your fortitude, and following a disciplined process. So this is about being small and thinking big and having a competitive advantage. Now, I'm going to give just a couple more ideas, and these could actually be separate webinars or separate discussions. So once you have your NPD down and once you're satisfied with those 8 steps that we've outlined, you can now move into your next step, which is the business case justification, which is models and methods. All right. Now, if you see over on the right side, you have a problem statement, a solution overview, market opportunity, You've already done that in your MPD. Those are the first 3 steps in your business case. Okay, so what do I have to do? Well, you need to really now define your business model. What is my model? Well, in this case, it's a product model. Okay. If you are a consultant, it would be a service model. So, what's that model look like? Then the second step is to go to market method. That's your pathway. How am I going to take my product to market? Or how am I going to take my service to market? Or whatever the business model is, how do I take it to market? Then what's my team? Who do I have? Now you can get into your pro forma P&L. Now I'm going to do a whole P&L from top to bottom. I'm going to do a cash flow. I'm going to look at ratios. I'm going to think about risks and mitigations. And I'm going to start thinking about the funding that's required. Because the top 3 things and the top 3 reasons why new ideas, new businesses fail, one is because of the concept. Well, we've addressed that. The second is either having cash or having enough cash. So that's what you want to make sure you justify in your business case. You have enough cash. And the third is the team. You have the right people. So now you have all that. Now you could go on to your business plan. You don't need to do the business plan before you do the business case, because the business plan is now I'm ready. I'm locked and loaded. I've got my business model. I've got my go-to-market. I've got my team. I've got my money. I've got my pro forma. Now I'm going to build a comprehensive roadmap. This is where you activate. This is where you build management and systems. You focus on objectives and strategies, and you build plans and programs. So a lot of times there's the inclination to do that right away, but I would suggest you don't. So just to sum it up, if you can imagine it, you can achieve it. And if you can dream it, you can become it. And I think that is kind of the summary. And we leave time for a little bit of Q&A. So thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone. That's consumer packaged goods, best practice NPD.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Lots of great information there. We are going to use the rest of our time for questions and answers. We'll take as many as we can up until the top of the hour. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button and type your question in there, and we'll take as many as we can, as I say, up until the top of the hour. Initially here we have a few from Brian, and the first one was when you were talking about attribute bundling, and he's made a comment. We've used AFANOVA to optimize attribute bundling. Perhaps you want to comment on that. It's more of a comment than a question, but.
Yeah, I mean, the key to attributes is first having your list and making sure that the quality of the data is right. Then I think in terms of, app or Nova, or whether you do it, your primary research, which I think in today's world you can do, you can use your own research. The important thing is, that you have the right sample. So whatever you use, make sure you have a representative sample. So data first, sample second, and then your application to use the data, I think is less material about making sure the data in the sample is right.
Great. A second one here, he's saying, Brian's saying, we've also used the service 1Q to do the real-time concept screens, and saying they're quite inexpensive. Any comments on that or that service?
Hey, my comment is, if you have and thank you for sharing, if you have an inexpensive service, that's awesome. And, I'm not privy to every service that's available, and we didn't have time to get into that. But using a service for concept is great. Personally, I think with a little preparation, you can be your own focus group moderator or your own one-on-one moderator. Don't be afraid to do that. Plus, by doing it personally, you absorb more and learn more, right? So I would not discourage you doing it personally. I also wouldn't discourage you using different services either.
We had a couple of questions on markup. One was, and they're very similar, so I'll give them both to you. One was when you were going through the pricing, how did you determine what the markups were? And then the related one is, how do we know how much markup to put into the price?
That's great. Well, what you need to do first of all is you don't know how much markup to put in. This is all interdependent, right? So it starts with cost of goods. That is a static, right? Your costs, you went to your co-packer, your costs are your costs. The other thing that is a hurdle, it's not a static, is going to be your own margin. If you can't get above 30%, I would say your proposition is a no-go. So this is why you have to think about it interchangeably. So if your cost of goods, if your markup can't, if your markup happens after you have cost of goods, you mark up over that. If you can't generate your own margin over 30%, it's a no-go. So you either have to increase your price or lower your costs. That's step one. Then you have to look at the retailer. And the way you learn about your retail margin is you just ask them, they'll tell you. Like I know if I go to Stop and Shop, they want a margin of 33%. So now I can put that into my model and I know whatever price I charge them, I know they're going to mark it up to get to a 33% margin. So I have to work that back. So it's all interchangeable. And again, we're here to help you. And if you need support with that, no problem. But I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think lots of good advice there. Here's one from Brian he's saying in our new product innovation work, we found that getting to a viable, acceptable consumer price point was always one of the biggest challenges. So do you want to maybe comment on that challenge?
Yeah, well, we could talk about that all day, but there certainly is ways that I used to use as entrepreneurs. You may not be used. It's called price sensitivity and price elasticity. So you can see how much consumers will pay or not pay within a given category. But when you're developing new products, we haven't talked about this, so I'm going to give you something else. But you've already done your benefits, right? So we've already done our features, advantage, and benefits, like for energetic, and we had 3 or 4 benefits. So what you want to do is understand value, and you want to understand value as it relates to your competition and your consumer. And the way to get the value is with an equation. Take your benefit bundle, put it over your price point to the consumer, and that equals the value. And there's certainly a more quantitative mathematical methodology to do it, but you can easily do it by look at your benefits, look at the benefits of your competitors over your price point, and that will give you an idea of your value. So look, if you can't get to, this is why a lot of competition in commodity products position themselves with scale, because they can scale up, they can produce products at a lower cost and get a better price that you can't do. So you have to kind of eat the loss longer until you can get to a commodity hurdle. And that's why competition prevails. But anyway, in the spirit of time, I'll move on because pricing is a very big area of discussion.
We do have a couple minutes more for questions. If you, just a reminder, if you have them, please use the Q&A button and we'll take a couple more. But while we have a minute or two, do you want to say a little bit more on pricing, Paul, to see while we wait to see if there's any more questions? Or
yeah, I think the important thing about price is the concept of modeling and doing it in a sequential way. Because what I see when I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs and individuals, and look, this is even in the corporate world, it really comes down to process and discipline. Start from your cost of goods because that's easy. Not easy, but it's accessible. You can quickly figure out what your product's going to cost by talking to a co-packer or talking to others. Then put that aside, then get into your price modeling and think of price modeling about getting to your margin, your required margin based on your costs, and getting onto the price to the consumer based on the retailer's required margin. And a lot of times you don't think that way. You think, oh, I'm just going to put a price out there. And you forget you've got to jump your hurdle and you've got to jump the retailer's hurdle to deliver that consumer price. Then the third step, now you're really ready to go to thinking about how many accounts can I be in, or how many consumers can I serve if I'm in a service business, and what's my cost and what's my volume and velocity, and then that'll give you some kind of revenue.
Okay, looks like that's oh, here's one. Do you have any thoughts about co-branding?
Co-branding. Well, branding in and of itself is a very rich and expansive area. I don't know what you mean by co-branding, but a lot of times you have to be careful about what you do with your brand, because your brand is your identity. Your brand is your image, and your brand tells consumers not only about how they should feel, but what they should anticipate and expect. So when you co-brand, you have to really be sure that whoever you're co-branding with is synchronized with your brand in terms of your personality, your identity, and your expression of your product. What I've seen is a lot of brands co-brand with brands that they really shouldn't, or co-brand with other brands or other entities that take their brand in a very different direction. So be careful, focus on who you are, and only co-brand with those that replicate, what you want to be.
Okay, that's great. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions today. Just a reminder to everyone that the session has been recorded and the materials will be available either later today or certainly within the next 24 hours on our website under recorded webinars. Our next live webinar is 2 weeks from today on Tuesday, May the 20th at noon, when Sheila O'Donnell will be presenting how to avoid costly mistakes with Medicare. And again, you can find more specifics on that webinar on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. Again, if you want to take advantage of the free individual counseling, you can use the link there, the yellow bit.ly link that we show on the screen, or you can just go to our website and click on the Request a Mentor button. We'd really appreciate it if you could fill out your evaluations that have been sent at the end of the webinar. They really help us going forward. And on behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's live webinar. And in closing, a special thank you to Paul for presenting such an informative webinar for us today. So thanks, Paul, and enjoy your day, everyone.
Thank you.